Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Chris Ciauri. Chris is the CEO of Unily, and Unily's mission is to connect, engage, and inspire employees everywhere. They are the leading employee experience platform used by enterprises to engage, empower, and inspire employees everywhere, and is positioned by Gartner as a leader in its 2023 Magic Quadrant for Intranet Package Solutions. And enterprises around the world, including CVS Health, Johnson & Johnson, Estee Lauder, Shell, so many more, are relying on Unily's world-class AI SaaS technology to transform their employee engagement and alignment effectively and create exceptional employee experiences. Chris, that was a mouthful.
That was a heck of an intro. Thanks, Ben. Looking forward to the chat today.
Absolutely. I'm not going to go through your bio, but basically, Chris, you are from the world of big tech. So you're president of EMEA in Google Cloud and for EMEA again at Salesforce. And I gather you've worked in a few English-speaking nations by now. Is that right?
You know, I didn't mean to work in every English-speaking country in the world. You can tell by accent, I'm American by birth, British by second citizenship. I've also lived in Ireland and Australia. So I've made the rounds a little bit.
Very good. So yeah, I know you've got an amazing time at the moment. Unite 24 has just gone on. So I want to get to that in a minute. But firstly, in your own words, could you describe Unily and how you help employers?
We deliver an employee experience platform. What that means, Ben, is we're aligning employees, getting more information and tools at their fingertips, helping them connect with each other, creating a digital fabric for large enterprises so that you're breaking down silos, you're trying to increase the speed of decision making, make faster pivots. One of the things we talked about at Unite was, really the journey that we're on with companies is to help them increase organizational velocity. So a lofty goal, but I think if you can optimize your employees in what's a pretty complex world right now, I think you have the opportunity to do that.
So I'm guessing COVID helped the business in terms of businesses everywhere wanted to facilitate support, growth, communication, etc.
I think it's a complicated answer. If you think about, sort of where we were at in terms of employee experience pre-COVID, I was part of a decade of companies really optimizing customer experience and spending, $1 trillion in a decade on how can we better enhance customer relationships and all the technology and strategy that went along with that. In that same decade, less than 2% of that money got spent on the employee experience. And I think COVID was a bit of a wake-up call that, overnight, the workplace changed, people go to hybrid work, and there became an increased focus on how are we going to connect better in a digital world, in an increasingly digital world. So yes, I think the irony of it is fast forward, 4.5 years. And one of the things that we've seen, in fact, we commissioned a study on the increase in digital noise. So I think as people bought tools, tried to do things to connect employees, invariably where we've landed is, 59-60% of employees say that their digital tools create stress. And the number actually goes up over 70% if you survey managers. I think lots of things happening where the right early attempts were made, but maybe we haven't ended up at the best place in terms of what the experience is like today for an employee with all the notifications and context switching and things like that. And that's where Unily steps in to try to simplify the world of work and put things in one place for employees to hopefully have a better experience, less stressful, go faster, create more velocity for your company.
And you've got a lot of use cases, different features and so on. What are some of the, thinking of the 80-20 rule principle, what are some of the features that get used or called upon more often for different situations?
I'd say there's a few. Certainly one of the things that a modern employee experience platform like Unily does well is create a unified communications platform. So how do I make sure I align my employees, help them understand the mission, whether that's the highest levels of the company from a CEO or down to the department level, but really, alignment, I'd say, is a pretty key area that we help with. We also help with, how do you better connect people to the information they need and people to people in such a way that you create deeper connections and better knowledge environments. We also simplify work, and I'll break that up a little bit. What I mean
Mm.
by that is a really important thing that a platform like Unily does is we integrate with other systems to bring in more of the contextual information that employees need to move through their day of work. One of the results of COVID, and this might even have started to happen before that, is the average large enterprise had a 170% increase in the amount of employee facing applications. There's just more things to log into, more
Yeah.
places to go, more places
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get distracted and pulled sideways. If you can take some of that information and present it in a unified space for your employees, you're just going to simplify their work and speed them up. Those are probably the biggest applications that we see. Certainly an emerging one, by the way, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it because I think it's so relevant in the employee space, is all the things that you can do with AI in terms of elevating performance. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg in that. So I'm definitely an AI optimist, particularly as it relates to how do we make employees more successful.
Yeah, definitely. So you kind of, I don't know, alluded or described one of the features is that integration element and bringing everything together. You're a SaaS guy. There are so many different point solutions in the HR world for different SaaS products. Does that mean that different HR related or HR tech software companies can offer their point solutions in through Unily, or would you team up with them?
Yeah, I think probably HR tech is one of the most natural fits in terms of not necessarily consolidating the application landscape, but consolidating where I need to go to consume that information. So Unily, for instance, has a partnership with Workday. We've integrated with hundreds of other tools, some HR, some not. And if I'm an employee, why can't I go to the same place to read the latest news from my CEO, exciting earnings results and acquisition, whatever it might be, in the same space? I see that I've got someone in my company that's congratulating me on a project, a rewards platform. And why can't I then just go up and say how much, either through an AI assisted digital assistant or just traditional enterprise search, how much PTO do I have because I'm thinking about taking a holiday? And that's just a few things. But in a lot of companies, I'm going to 3 different places to do that. So I think all of this is how can I just take logical work and consolidate it into fewer places? And I think that's what we're doing successfully for a lot of our customers.
And then on the business development side of things, an analogy that I would often say is for a company that's a SaaS business, for instance, one of the biggest competitors or the biggest challenges for them is that the potential buyer can say, well, we've already got this in a spreadsheet. We can do it and we're fine. We don't need it. And so at the larger scale for Unily, do you find that there's objections that we say, oh, we've already got Google Suites, Microsoft Suites, we've got Workday set up. We don't need any more communication tools or engagement tools. How do you get past that?
Yeah, I think you asked, has a space like ours been lifted, by pandemic effects? I think what's happened is because of this digital noise that we talked about, because of the, disaggregated workforce or half working in office, half not
Yeah.
hybrid workforce. I think how do I create experiences for my employees so they're more engaged and more
Yeah.
productive is a board level topic. So I think increasingly the market's coming at a company like Unily because we're right in the middle of that conversation. Yes, you have all those other systems. You're not doing Unily in a spreadsheet. You might have 10 systems today that all play a key role in the business. But if you're suffering from too many silos, if you're suffering from lack of ability to drive change, if you struggle with engagement and productivity, you're looking for ways to sort of improve that, unify that. And so it's not necessarily always, sometimes it is. There are systems you don't need if you have a systems like ours, if you've gone sort of multi-component best of breed. But a lot of times the impact we have is just harnessing all of that rich, valuable information in all those systems and bringing it into one place that's branded like you and has your brand colors and your sound and your words and your values, and just creating a digital fabric or digital hub, a super app for your
Yeah.
employees.
I would agree. They would be C-suite or board level discussions, all of those things. So
You know that given your conversations with HR
yeah,
leaders around the
yeah,
world.
yeah. So in terms of getting the word out there about Unily, I mean, You guys are phenomenal in terms of the content, the thought leadership you produce. You've got Unite. Maybe I could start there. Could you tell the audience
Sure.
what Unite is?
Yeah, so Unite is an annual conference, annual user conference. I talk about it as a learning conference. It's actually the largest employee engagement conference in the world. It was starting about 2 years ago. Between presence and online, we've had, well over a couple thousand people. And we're putting together, these customers, prospects, partners, press analysts. We're trying to learn together, inspire. It's a boardroom global topic. How do we help each other on this journey? And obviously, for Unily, that's a chance to get the word out about the impact we're having. And you mentioned some of the companies we have up front, the Wipros, the Shells, the J&Js, those type of companies will be there. They'll be learning from each other. I always think of a conference like that. If you maximize learning, then value multiplies.
Absolutely. So we started discussing AI. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. It's just completely shift the way work is done and the challenges that we face. So I don't even know how to ask that as a question.
Because we serve the largest demanding multi-brand, multifaceted companies in the world. We've been in conversations over the last 8 years through COVID, the last 18 months with Gen AI, and we have to be on the pulse of it because we're trying to figure out like how to maximize employee experiences. And this is moving fast. So I think we talked about like a couple of horizons of how AI will move over the next few years, ultimately ending up where you'll have agents that look like employees interacting with you in a Unily platform and then other systems, and they'll be finishing tasks. This won't just be about natural language, search and answers and content, which we certainly have benefited a lot in the last 18 months from some, and our customers have benefited from some of the first iterations of Gen AI in market. One of the things that would be super important, and this is where we're trying to take some leadership and some thought leadership position, is it's a superb opportunity, particularly around how it can impact us as employees, but it needs to be governed. And I think you're increasingly going to hear a conversation about, governed AI, like having integrity.
Yeah.
So yes, we're launching lots of new features, but we're putting everything through the lens of this needs to be robust and governed so that, some of the large companies that I mentioned are confident that they can take this up. It's not experimental and they can start to drive some real outcomes with it. So governed AI, we think, is going to be a term that's going to be pretty important to help people maximize, but also minimize some of the risks.
Poor old Amazon gets used all the time for that situation where they used AI a long time ago and it was biased. But I think, bias is, garbage in, garbage out. So I guess that is part of that aspect you mean in terms of the governance side of things.
Yeah. How do you make sure that bias doesn't enter in? I think if you want to be a leader in helping companies innovate in this, you're going to have to, like I said up front, I'm an AI opportunist. I think we have to be as a company, but we also need to be measured. Like we're not serving small companies where we can get away with some of the experimentation and the risk gets lost. We got to be able to do this for the biggest companies in the world.
And I usually sort of end with what do you see as being the future of the world of work and stuff. I don't know is it AI or what thoughts would you leave people with in terms of what to watch out for in the world of work coming down the line?
We showed a sort of day in the life at the Unite conference, and it had, and I'll pick up percent, 60, 70% things that we already do today in terms of how we can create that robust, connected, but simple experience for an employee. I think AI is going to supercharge that. We certainly showed some of that, but I think you sort of said up front, our tagline, we really believe that our job is to keep thinking about how do we engage, how do we inspire, how do we enhance productivity for employees everywhere. Yes, that'll be AI, but it's also just thinking about the massive explosion in applications and data. How do we simplify that? Like I mentioned, 60% of employees say that their work technology creates stress. That's not going to be Unily customers. We need to bring that down and just create more simplicity and productivity for employees.
I think a lot of employees and managers and leaders everywhere just breathed a sigh of relief in that, simplicity going to be such a valuable commodity anyway. So thank you, Chris, for sharing your story and what's going on in the business. Finally, what should people do if they want to learn more about Unily and its mission?
Sure. Reach out, come to our website, www.unily.com. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Attend our Unite conference in 2025. I think it'll continue to be the biggest one in the world.
That's amazing. Yeah. If you're listening to this on the go, check the show notes, but also check the website. Like I said, there's a lot of amazing content, thought leadership in all sorts of formats. So it's an amazing resource. So yeah, Chris, thank you very much. Thanks for sharing the story of Unily, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Ben. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.